Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
We're laughing, ladies and gentlemen, because I have had, it's September 1st, and we're taping this. I don't know when it is. I have been technology kryptonite. All I can tell you is it's September 1st, and the weird solar flares were really affecting me. The minute I got on my phone 2 minutes ago with my guest, medium Betsy Palmer, I immediately felt better. And I'll just say this to you guys. A lot of people email me to be guests on, and many of you I have answered, and sometimes it's just timing. And I apologize if some of you are waiting for an answer or sort of on hold. Like I said, sometimes it's just the moment, or I get caught up. In fact, offline, Betsy was telling me something, and I was like, yep, I knew it when I booked her. She was going to be great. So Betsy Palmer is a medium. She wrote a book called You Are Gifted, we're going to get into. She's calling us from Hawaii. How is Hawaii, Betsy? Oh, and I had you cut off for a moment, but now you're there. How is Hawaii?
Hawaii is beautiful this morning. It's cool. It's breezy. The sky is clear.
You know, when I was 18, I went out there for a summer and did all kinds of illegal things, and it was fantastic. And I should go back, but okay. So one of I want to start with how your gifts came about, your mediumship. Give me a little background of how you became Betsy Palmer medium.
Of course. And first off, thank you so much, Karen, for having me on. I'm a real fan of yours. I love your podcast.
Oh, thank you for listening.
So I've never not been a medium. I don't ever remember a time in my life when I was not in my own private space and it was not filled with non-physical beings. Mm. So when I was a child, of course, I was terrified of all of this. And everyone can relate the number of steps it takes to get from your bed to the door to the bathroom, and you're jumping and the blanket shields that prevent things from getting to you at night. Don't drop your hand over the side of the bed. All of it. I have always had non-physical entities around me.
Now, right off the bat, this is very interesting because I always thought of mediumship as speaking with the dead. So, and also for everybody that doesn't know, there's psychic, which is kind of tarot fortune telling that I do. Betsy, you do a bunch of things. You do past life work, you do mediumship, and you do spirit guide connection. Now, mediumship is let me see if we can give that a better definition, because sometimes people get psychic and medium confused. Psychic is looking at the future. Medium is talking to, I used to think only humans, but it's more, isn't it?
It's a lot of things. I don't put a limit on it. Yes, it is talking to what we know as people that used to be alive on Earth with us that are no longer in the physical body. Yes, it is that. It also includes animals, guides, beings who have never been in a body. Mediumship and channeling to me are very close because I describe myself as a conduit. Just like a radio has a receiver and there's a speaker wire and sound comes out the speaker. That's me. I just receive information, it passes through me, and it is shared with you.
And I feel like there's another kind of channeling that I always just separate as a paranormal investigator. The second type is the one that makes me nervous. And that's where somebody literally takes over your body. And I like sometimes, usually there's people that do that voluntarily. And that's not what we're talking about, correct? You get the information.
Yeah, I know that is kind of a fine line between what we used to call a trance channel or possession, right? Mm-hmm. I just remember when I was in my late teens and I started getting interested in it, my mom said, "Oh no, you don't want to do that. Those people die a horrible death." I don't know I don't know where she got her information. I just took it as an, okay, let's not do that.
Well, I know my only input on that, because I did have a friend that took a class from a very famous medium, and the last class I think was letting someone take over your body, and I think that's a bad habit. But I guess unless you're built for that. But as for my especially my paranormal experience, that's pretty much a no, unless you are someone that's done this forever and you understand. But that should not be taking place, so to speak, right?
Yeah, that doesn't really resonate with me. That kind of gives me that not so fresh feeling.
Right. Great way to put it. Yeah, that seems like you shouldn't. It almost does seem like on a paranormal investigation when somebody has a walk-in and they're not supposed to be there. Keep your body to yourself, people. That's what I'm saying. So you've always been a medium, and now this is a weird shoot-off question, but just lately in this awakening, I have suddenly been seeing very strange things, not always human. And you're going to help me. You said that the mediumship should be coming through, because everyone on my podcast knows I've been trying, and I can't get that last hitch of how to get there. Mm-hmm. But it seems like, I don't even know that I would say these are UFOs, but when I close my eyes at night, I've been seeing very specific things. There's a lot out there, isn't there?
It's limitless. I believe the human imagination is so tiny and fundamental in what it's capable of picturing or knowing. So the longer I do my job, the more I realize I really don't know anything, that there's just no limits to what the possibilities are out there.
I'm going to throw you a very strange curveball right now. So if it doesn't make sense, just brush it off. I had a call from someone who had, well, you're in Hawaii. Maybe you will know this. Her father, very, very old. I think we're dealing with dementia. In fact, that was the first thing, is you have to get an MRI or something. But he was suddenly seeing tiny people that look like puppets.
Menahunis.
What are they called?
Menahunis. They're Menahunis in Hawaii are small people that are builders, and they come out late at night and they build things like canals and foundations for buildings and things, and then you just never see them.
Oh, okay. Well, he's seeing little people, but it's during the day, and they're just in his apartment doing things and they come wrapped in a blanket. And he is also having some dementia issues where he can't find his way home and stuff. But I don't think those two things are separate. I think sometimes when people go into dementia, they literally see another dimension.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. Yeah, because part of the consciousness has been lessened, dimmed down, that thinking, judging, measuring part of the mind, and there's other channels that are more open. And sure, absolutely, it sounds like he's got a great team of house elves to me.
It does, kind of, but it's just turned kind of bad. He says they keep him up all night and stuff. So I'm
boundaries.
Yeah, and also I don't know that he has his boundaries in his real life, but also I tell you what, folks, I'll give you an update on this later, because there's some objects that came into the house that seem to have brought it. It's a huge deal, but I like that. I'm going to look up Menahunis. There's also, because I can't remember, I asked them where they came from. There's a lot of Cherokee Indians used to talk about the little people. So it's got a whole bunch attached to it. But it's one of those where, like you were saying in your book, when someone says, this is going to sound crazy, we have to lose that statement, right?
Right. For me, it all comes down to grounding, setting boundaries, and recognizing that you're the one that is receiving this stuff. So this means you're the one that gets to set the rules. This goes for anyone that works with spirit realm, that grounding and connecting yourself to earth is the number one thing. clearing your space, but also just having a conversation with these beings, like, this is where I'm willing to go, and I'm not sure what your intention is, or please tell me what your intention is and how I can help you, and let's see if we can take care of it, coexist, or send you on, or provide whatever assistance that you're looking for by contacting me.
Yeah. And do you do that for people?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. I might get you in touch with this person because the way me and my team work, we usually try to get the person to do it. But I think we try to get the person trained and knowing what to do and to do their own thing. But I think there is a dementia issue that I don't think this person is capable. Well, wonderful. All right. So you've always been a medium. You've always seen spirits. Now, when did you sort of realize this could be the way I make my living?
I have really been on this path since I was a teenager. I have always been seeking, studying, developing, and even my zodiac, my horoscope, my natal chart, it's hilarious. It's just everything clumped in this one house. It's all in Leo, and everybody says, "Oh, this is the leader." And I just kept standing around going, "But when?" So when things clicked was on my 55th birthday. I was grumpy. It was a bad birthday. I was sitting, sort of meditating, sort of stewing, and all of a sudden I hear, "Okay, get ready. This is it. We're going." And I said, "What do you mean? It's now. We're doing this now." And I said, "You gotta be kidding me. Look where we are. How are you going to make this happen? I don't know what to do." And they said, "Nope, we got it. You don't do anything." 3 months later, 3 months later, I was channeling for a group of people who had been meditating together for 7 or 8 years, a lovely group of people. And that was really the way it began for me, working in public and not only with friends and family.
That's great. That's great. So, wow. So at 55, you're giving me a lot of hope because I just turned 56. It's funny that your astrological chart is all Leo. Mine is Leo with an awful lot of Gemini. And, like I told you before we were on air, everyone says, I just had a reading with a shaman and she was like, "You are more of a medium than a psychic." And I was like, well, all right. And another astrologer told me that. She said, and I just don't know how to open that door. What do you tell people that have that right there and they need to open that door up?
The number one thing is grounding. Everybody thinks that we need to be up in our throat, third eye, crown chakra, soul chakra, whatever. Everybody thinks we need to be up, out of the body, connected with Father Sky, out there. But yes, that's an important component in the process. But there's a reason it's called trust your gut intuition. That is where the ability lives, in your gut. The first, second, third chakras. So grounding, centering, and really making peace with yourself for insisting on incarnating into a human body at this time. And really fluffing up your relationship with Mother Earth. Appreciate her, appreciate her, appreciate her, and allow her to return to you how much she loves us. Because face it, we have gravity. That is so Mother Earth, who loves us so much, she wants to feel each one of our footsteps on her skin. Connect to Mother Earth and really, really appreciate that. That is my first step. That's also the beginning of boundary setting. By grounding and centering and clearing yourself, clearing your space, and you defining who's allowed to converse with you or to interact with you, who's allowed in your space.
Okay. So,
okay.
I love that. See, I had to pause for a second. Now we got a siren. Okay. So I love the grounding, as your first thing. So in other words, this is another interesting thing about, someone told me this once, and correct me if this is not your, way, but they said, so psychic with the grounding is more upwards energy or top of the head energy. Mediumship, this actually makes sense to me that you would talk so much about Mother Earth, because that is sort of where you want to make that connection with the people that have passed on, correct?
The way it feels to me, what makes sense to me is that the information does come from a different, higher, non-physical realm. But for me to open up that channel, I need to be grounded. If I'm floating around up there, then I'm just picking up random bits of stuff from anyone. If I'm grounded, I am the one that's doing the interviewing. I'm the one asking the questions, and I am the one that is waiting for the answers.
Okay. So in other words, I was thinking it had to do with them, and you were saying it has to do the space that you're in. Fantastic. Okay. So you're grounded, you're ready, you have a client, and that client wants to talk to their mother. Is that the point where you set the boundaries, or you say, this is who is welcome to speak to me? How does it set up after that?
It's before. I do that before. I do the grounding, centering, clearing prayer before that even. Okay. And then when the client communicates to me who they're trying to reach out to, because the energetic plane is so vast, what works for me is to imagine a giant filing cabinet. I need that person's first and last name, their date of birth, and how long they've been gone. And then it's like a cabinet door opens. Someone's rifling through the files and gets exactly that person, because they say, I want to talk to my mother, Mary. Well, there's a lot of Marys up there. Let's make sure we get the right one, because anybody who resonates and can knows you can hear them can pop in without some kind of boundary setting.
Okay. You know what? That's a perfect place. Hold on one second. We're going to do a little commercial and come right back. Okay, perfect. Buddy, I just wanted to let you know about some upcoming comedy dates. You can see me August 26th at Flappers in Burbank doing my psychic stand-up show, my favorite show ever. 9/11, you can see me in San Juan Capistrano at the Camino Real Playhouse. You can see me in Decatur, Illinois. Is it Illinois or Indiana? If you live there, you should know. 9/17, September 17th, doing Dry Bar Comedy Live. You can look for tickets at Dry Bar Comedy Live online. The 24th, you can see me at Wise Guys in Ogden, Utah. And on the 25th, you can see me in Provo, Utah, taping my next Dry Bar special. Again, back at Flappers on September 30th, doing the psychic stand-up show. And the big deal, October 28th through the 31st. You can see me the 28th, 29th, and 30th doing my big Halloween show at Rosemont Zanies in Rosemont, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. And on the 31st, you can see me at Zanies in Chicago doing the same Halloween show. All right, everybody, hope to see you on the road. Okay, so that is, I've often wondered, some people I know make the person say their, like, especially doing your psychic reading, they make the person say their name 3 times. So this makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. So literally the file cabinet is saying, I'm calling Mary Jane, who was born on this date, blah, blah, blah. And then, what happens then?
Then I just become still and wait to see what information passes to me.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
And it doesn't matter if it makes sense to me. And as a matter of fact, I get a lot of, I get kind of played by the guides all the time. They will make me say things like squirrel nutkin. Now, if you've ever sat in front of a group of 10 people and said, squirrel nutkin, who relates to this? Raise your hand. If you've ever done that before.
And did it relate to someone?
It always makes sense in the end. It always makes sense. Even if people are looking at you like, oh my God, she's nuts. It always makes sense in the end.
That's an interesting thing about the random information, because what I do if I'm reading for someone, actually, I feel like I'm doing a lot more mediumship with their guides than I know. Especially lately, the cards go down and I close my eyes and it's like this, da 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 da, information. That started, I think I've always been doing a little of that, but this year it's taking over a lot. So I think I'm doing it that way. But when you, for example, I was talking to someone and I picked up a coworker. I was like, this is a gentleman. He's very young. He has dreadlocks. He had nothing to do with the conversation. It wasn't a dead person. Just he pops into my mind. And he didn't really have anything to do with anything except she was like, oh, I know exactly who that is. It's blah, blah, blah. Is that when you're just picking up random pieces of information that don't mean anything? Or I always just take them to mean you're tuned in?
Yeah, I think it means you're receiving it for a reason. And sometimes it's important to investigate it. And sometimes it's important to say, this is what I got. I'm not really sure what's going on with it. Let's just put it off to the side for now. We'll come back to it later. And if it's important, it will come back.
So when you, let's say, I love this. So you never go into like that vast information and just start picking what comes. You're always very direct about what you want to know.
I can in a group channel if nobody wants to ask a question, the guides take over, and sometimes, this is going to sound bad, but sometimes when they're just doing like this random bigger picture kind of thing, I call it spiritual blah-de-blah. Like they're talking, it's true, but it's not really significant to any particular one person. Valid messages, but again, it can just be really random bits of truth coming out.
Yeah, and sometimes that's why, especially if I'm doing it, I try to start with something that doesn't have to be, it should be something they know. It's kind of like, so-and-so says you should smile more. That's kind of, I think that falls in the blah-de-blah, right? So sometimes you should be happier. That I feel is sometimes that is the message, but sometimes I feel like there has to be more.
Well, for me as a medium, as a channel, I tell people, I know it sounds like it's my information, but it's not. Your connection and your desire, your emotional connection to your question is what makes the conversation happen. If you're close to me, I could just be sitting in a closet with the door shut. I'm going to get nothing. So if people refuse to begin a conversation with a question or inquiry, then that's when that stuff comes through. I usually tell those folks, well, I left you a pen and paper there, and get ready because this is the time your guides are now going to assign you homework. Because without a question, they're going to tell you what they think you should be doing for your own progress.
That's very interesting. Like yesterday, I had someone who bought a reading for someone else who really wasn't into the readings. And it's always first of all, it's always a mishmash. But second of all, it's always, I don't know what, I don't know what I want to ask. I don't know what I want to, and that's sort of a waste of time.
I have actually sent some people away or just said, let this be a gift. Just, or I've also told a couple of people flat out, I'm sorry, I'm uninvited.
Yeah, I do that too. If I feel, and it's actually interesting. It hasn't happened that often, but I kind of know before the call if it's not connected. Like I seem to can tell now right away, and I will either offer. There was one lady, and I was like, "Listen, I got to give you another reading. So another day, different energy." And she was like, "Okay, you can say you can have your money back or another reading." They usually say, "I'll take another reading," and the second one was perfect. Was knocked it out of the park because some days things just don't connect. Right?
Yes. And I think for me, what seems like the biggest challenge is when people, they have a question and they're trying to hide it from you, or they have a personal concern that they don't want out. They don't want spoken. They don't want it out into the physical world. So those can be a little bit challenging.
Is that like, say, somebody's cheating and they don't want to say anything?
It could be any secret that they have that they don't want others to know. It could be anything.
Ah, got it. Okay. So you're grounded, you go up and you open the file cabinet and ask who you're speaking to. Does it just happen after that, or is there another step?
No, it just happens after that. And I would say it would be typical that some information will be shared to me pretty quickly, oftentimes instantaneously. If I hadn't received information beforehand, which I typically do that as well, but something will come very quickly. And I've had physical things happen. I've had things jump off the shelf. I've had very specific messages come through, had jokes come through. You just never know.
Yeah. And so, I'm sure this is different for everybody. I usually get a visual. I may get almost someone with like a big cartoon teeth and go, did this person have like a big smile? Like I almost see it distorted. And then they were like, yes, everybody talked about their smile or something like that. Do you get just words or do you get visuals also?
Well, number one, I'm jealous. I've been working on clairvoyance for a long time and it's getting better. I used to be strictly clairaudient or clairsentient. You just know what you know, but you're not sure how or why you know it. That one was tricky. And clairaudient too, because we're taught as Americans, if you're hearing voices, you're nuts.
Oh, I love clairaudient. This is my favorite. Yeah. It rarely happens.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then we should have another conversation about this because I like visual images too. I guess getting all of it to me has been more validating for me as in my progress working with the public. Seeing images to me, then I can describe that really clearly. Sometimes with just the clairaudience, information comes through so fast. It's a bit of a wrestling match in my head when I'm saying, all right, y'all settle down. I need one representative here to speak, one, and you're going to have to slow it down. And it needs to be a language I understand, which is English because I'm not gifted with any kind of language skills. So that used to happen to me a lot with clairaudience, not so much anymore.
Now, and clairaudience can take place outside your head and inside your head, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
I've only had a couple of really outside, and usually it's when I'm waking up in the morning. A voice will wake me up. And it's usually a question I addressed in my sleep or something like that. So it's almost like, it's kind of like the universe shows me it's there, but we haven't, like, I'm loving listening to you because it's like, here's the format. Do this, try this. Now, let's say I try it and I get grounded. And since let's call me a baby medium, a new medium. If I get nothing, it doesn't mean I've failed. It just means it just means not today.
It could mean just not today, or let's try a different method. If you don't hear anything and you don't see anything, let somebody put an object in your hand. Let's try psychometry. Can you get anything? Let's try automatic writing. Put pencil and paper before you, write down whatever comes. There's just other ways to try it. Or it could also be that if you're sitting face to face with someone, there's too much input. But if you're on a telephone, it eliminates a lot of input just by only now hearing. And sometimes that opens things up better.
I prefer, almost all my readings are on the phone now, and I may not go back to in person because I feel like the reading is pure when they're on the phone and nobody's making a face and, and then I'm not self-conscious if my eyes are open or eyes are closed. There's no other thoughts. So I think, that's because even I was like a reading on the phone, and now I'm like, I think that is better. Do you think, and I don't use any objects like this, but do you think a trigger object, like this is the crystal I hold on to when I'm doing mediumship or something like that, can help just to get your brain in the moment?
Whatever works for you is the right thing. I myself don't subscribe to any particular objects. whether it's power objects or objects of divinity. Whatever works for you is fantastic. I have a bunch of different stuff. I use whatever I feel called to use. I think if you feel like, oh, this is a healing situation, I need to hold an amethyst. Well, I myself believe just saying that pulls in what the amethyst stone would provide.
That's, that actually explains my tarot teacher. Used to say she wasn't really about crystals or stuff because, well, it wasn't that. It was like, well, then do I have to have my crystals with me all the time? And that answer is no. Actually, you just answered that question. No, you can actually pull what you need from that crystal just by saying it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, like, if you being sensitive that you're in a room and there's some bad vibes going down, and you think to yourself, "Gosh, I wish I had my black tourmaline in my pocket." That's the black tourmaline telling you it's time to set your boundaries.
So it's still good to have your own black tourmaline, just it doesn't have to go everywhere with you. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know if you're like me. I believe everything has an energy, everything has a spirit, everything has a voice.
Yep. Yes. And I think that is also, sometimes I tell people to listen to the trees, because the trees, and they all have a different voice. A lot of people are talking to trees now, of course, in your head. But I feel like, and you can do it out loud if you like, but I feel like that is a way. I always use that step when people want to get in touch with their guides, because it's sort of opening the channel of being able to speak to any energetic thing out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I love that, because trees, they're the record keepers. They've seen it all. They're ground. Their roots are literally what we imagine when we try to ground. So I love that.
Wow. So you were telling me something before we got online. Is that information still right there for you? I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah, sure. I jotted it down just so I wouldn't get lost. I was kind of tuning in before we joined on the phone, and I got some information pretty quickly. I felt some pressure on my throat and kind of around the thyroid area and just in the sternal notch. I felt some pressure, and the information was that this is something about the voice, something about the throat. You were already aware of it. You already knew what it was. I felt my heart in my throat. And there was also a connection to the larynx, the vocal cords. And it had a little bit to do with this mediumship
issue
journey that you're taking. That I think there is something going on about, if you open up to mediumship, you, Karen, who are you going to be talking with? To me, there's just a question in your mind, of a concern of who's going to be coming through. If I allow this information to come to me, who does it stop with? And the question that I wanted to pose to you was for you to tell me how you see the difference between ghosts and demons.
I would put it, and I'd throw a third category in there. I see ghosts as human. Then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. And then demons are like a totally different, I did an episode with my friend Diette where she channeled a demon, but I would put them in a totally, I wouldn't think I would be channeling a demon, because first of all, I think I know that vibe now. I get it when they're there, but I do think there's a lot of negativity between the two. Do you know what I mean? Like that's more, because I did have a quite bad attachment at one point. That is sort of a little bit of a lock and key there.
And that was the direction this query was going for in my mind, was pushing apart those two bookends between the non-physical beings you do want to communicate with and those that you don't, was just widening that because of what's true about who's available to communicate with. And does it make sense for you that if you open up to mediumship, to be willing to serve as a medium for information that other people need to hear is allowed to come through you. Is there a concern about who you're going to be inviting into your world?
Yes, in my home.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So this starts to tell you now how to have that conversation with your spiritual team. That, and I would be very, very, very exacting. I would start writing down a list of the things that you are willing to do for them in service and the things that you are not willing, the boundaries you're not willing to cross. Ask for guides that handle the things that you're willing to do. What has happened in my world is that I get to meet a whole lot of people that are developing this. There's people that are hearing information, seeing information, they're getting the synchronicities. They're not understanding it. They kind of know it's an intuition, psychic, mediumship thing going on, but there's not a lot of definition for them yet. I get to meet these people a lot, and I love it because I open now to their spiritual team to help them take a step up in this staircase, this progression. But what happens for me is that I get to connect with the love that these beings are beaming to the audience. And so I get to sit there and marinate in this for the entirety of the session. It's pretty awesome.
This is so helpful what you're talking about because I don't know. It's like I do several online meditations and stuff, but to have this format, I just it's really quite good. Have you thought about teaching a mediumship course?
That's what the book is. It's a little tiny book. It's really just the exercises for my spiritual development class, which I just was getting off the ground and just starting when COVID hit. I haven't figured out how to do it online yet. I have to be honest, because I can teach online, but there's practice component. The students need to practice together. I'm not sure how that works out when it's in a Zoom. You can't go off into twosies and read each other in a 1 hour Zoom. So.
Right. When you figure that out, let me know. Because I know a lot of people, I even did a whole teacher episode. I did an episode just with people teaching stuff. And and mediumship, I know, is one people are always asking about. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, let's talk about past lives and spirit guides. Because a lot of people ask me about past lives readings. And I think it would be great to send them your way. Okay, folks, we will be right back. Hey, you guys, check this out. Quilted Tarot on Kickstarter is going to be a major arcana tarot deck based on the cards of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which you know is my baby. I love the Rider-Waite-Smith. That is my living. That is my love. The creator will make a quilt for each of the cards, photograph them, and turn them into a beautiful tarot deck. Major Arcana only decks have many uses, and the guidebook that will come with the deck will have, in addition to explanations for each card, information and spreads you can use with just the Major Arcana. Also, you can do some great one-card readings with this deck, too. To support Quilted Tarot, search for Quilted Tarot on Kickstarter or type in kickstarter.com/projects/Quilted Tarot /Quilted-Tarot. That was hard to say. Probably easier to just go to kickstarter.com and put in Quilted Tarot like I did. So go support this Kickstarter, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot wait to see what this looks like. Fantastic. Quilted Tarot on Kickstarter. Okay, so sometimes when I'm talking with people, I will get some past life connections, or I will get that a friend of mine has a young child, and his behavior is like, no, this is 100%. This has come from a past life because of how young he is, how intense this is, how this goes. How do you read past lives, or when people call you, tell me how that goes.
Usually, if someone is doing this, if they're coming for a past life reading, we discuss what's showing up in their life right now. And once they start telling me their experience, what's going on, their situation. The emotion is strong enough that it will pretty much let me connect it to what's going on historically for them. But there's other times when people come for not even a past life reading, and they'll be describing a situation, and it will also link to past life stuff, things that are unfinished. Sometimes in a past life reading, the information is that they have come to end generational karma. And that also goes into the past life thing, because even though maybe they didn't live their great grandmother's life, there's still the same situation following down through the lineage. So that is also a past life consideration in my world.
That is something they've actually found in DNA.
Mm-hmm.
That's that now they have found if you have family members who were in the Holocaust, that trauma or that, I would say, that anxiety or something, it's been passed down.
Yeah. Wow. So past lives it's so fascinating to me, because the situation doesn't have to be exactly the same. Let's take this. This is an easy one. Lots of people that are intuitive, psychic, empathic, call it what you will, are so afraid of coming out of the closet because they don't want to be persecuted. Pretty easy to figure that one out. A lot of people had experienced persecution during witch hunts. And oftentimes these people were just the healers of the neighborhood. So that one is a really easy one to bust open, and okay, you're doing the same things, the affinity for plants or the recipe making or their psychic gifts. It's the same things that have followed them to this life. And now it's time to change the perspective on it, to learn the lesson that you needed to learn from the past life, and to decide how you want to express this going forward, if you want to, if you don't, but to come to a loving and peaceful resolution with the past.
Interesting. And so, like, I have to have had a past life with tarot. There's no question. The deck I use, the way I just always think that has to be. When people ask you, and this is a really interesting one, when someone who hasn't had mind-blowing, and I mean mind-blowing in a bad way, relationships, or something happens where they hit that twin flame, where they are actually different. Like, I never act like this. I'm never jealous. I'm never blah, blah, blah. And all that sort of comes up. Is you have any input on that?
Yeah, boy, it's a gift. It's a gift. I believe when those really uncomfortable things come to us in a lifetime, it's because we were so sure we were ready to handle it coming into this incarnation, that we were up there in heaven with our team, the big book of lives, and we're insisting it's this one, I can do it this time. Your guides, your team may or may not be convinced. They may have a better idea, but you're sure that you are ready to tackle this, to bring it on. I got this. I can master it. So I think those really, really, really challenging things are just our soul's intense desire to progress. We can look at it and say, okay, I chose this. I don't know why yet. It's really uncomfortable. And what can I do to shift it? How can I learn from it? What are the gifts that have come to me in this? And to really give yourself credit for being that courageous, because it's not for everybody. We see a lot of people out there in the world that are living this great 3D materialistic life. They're having all kinds of fun. If you wonder who it is, any music video, there they are. They're having a blast. But not all lifetimes look like that. And they're not going to want that for all of them. We've already done those. We're now here to do some meat and potatoes kind of stuff. Is it fun? Not always. Is it uncomfortable? Frequently. Are Are we brave, courageous healers on our path to wholeness? You betcha.
So, two topics before I have to run out and buy your book. Before we have to end this, and I have to run and get your book. The first one is talking to your guides, and the second one is advice for people that are having this awakening is pretty brutal or it's pretty intense. I think those two topics. So advice for people that say, I can't connect with my guides. I always think you're connecting somehow. I almost always say, stop saying that first of all. But what do you tell people?
Yeah, I would agree. I kind of feel it out on an individual basis. You know, if it's someone who's pretty young and they have a younger family and they're getting a lot of synchronicities, they're wondering what's going on, you know, carve out small moments, have something nifty sitting beside your side of the bed that you can look at to remind you all the time, little tiny altar or something, to keep a connection, but keep it simple. Because everyone who really has done the deep dive into this stuff knows that if you really want to follow a path as an intuitive, you need to be prepared to say goodbye to everything in your life, because a lot of stuff falls away.
Yeah.
So if you're really happy with the path you're on and you're intuitive, there's a way to live that comfortably and happily and things and having a benefit to it. If you really want to go whole hog with it, there's choices to make.
That's interesting. And in this awakening now, I think sometimes there's people that feel like, I didn't ask for this. And I always kind of want to say, I think you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you sure? Yeah. Are you sure?
Okay. And so I think I mixed both questions in one there, or we did that somehow. But when people, so you were saying keep like a trigger object to remind you that you're always talking to your guides, or you always should be talking to your guides. And I also think it's very interesting because, especially with automatic writing, which I always did sort of for therapeutic process, like they always say in that book, The Artist Way, that's a good way to clear your head in the morning. But it was interesting because today it was like straight information that started out with you, not like I think I'm having a bad day. It was like you, this. And I tell people, especially with automatic writing, it can take a while to crack open or it can happen immediately. But that's one of those tools that I think sometimes people think there's going to be fireworks and banners and it's going to be an English person's voice that you haven't never heard before, when it's very subtle, isn't it?
Yeah, it really can be. I tell people all the time, just trust it. Just do your preparation, have the paper before you, wait for something to come through. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be sweet potato, brake pads, hydrochloric acid. It doesn't matter. Write it all down, because this is you demonstrating your willingness to communicate and be in service.
And you were saying sometimes that's a little test, right?
I mean, what's the old joke? Well, we've sent her 5 synchronicities and 3 signs and a pot of money, and let's bet she does the exact opposite thing, right?
Right.
So it goes both ways. You can get a lot of encouragement, but if you're not honoring what you're getting and trusting it, instead of saying, oh, that's crazy, that's not real, you got to honor it if you want to be on that path. You need to honor.
I love that you have to honor it, because I leaned into that with feathers. Feathers. And so whenever I see a feather, I pick it up. And then all of a sudden there's like a huge deluge of feathers coming at me. Like wherever
Absolutely.
I go, there's a feather. So I always take that as one. So that is right. So actually that sets us back saying this is crazy or those numbers don't mean anything. Interesting. It's funny because before the pandemic, I was going to get some plastic surgery, and I have never had, talk about guides on overdrive. They lost the quote. The doctor said something crazy in the thing that turned me off. The second doctor canceled the day of. I finally was like, all right, I get it. No plastic surgery at this time. But it was like, I think it was like 3 or 4 major things. It wasn't hints. It wasn't maybe I can't find the file. It was like, I can't find the file. They can't find the file. It was like a major thing. And I really felt like at that point, my guides were like, we are not letting you do this. We will get you in a car accident where you need plastic surgery before you do this plastic surgery. And it was kind of intense, but I'm still amazed at how powerful that single experience was.
Yes, I'm in complete agreement. And yes, and lean into it. If you're driving somewhere, you can go 2 different ways and you're told, nope, go that way. Well, it's going to take me longer. It's out of the way. Nope, go that way. Okay.
Yes, honor that. I love that. It's like for some reason they're telling me to eat an awful lot of mushrooms, and I don't mean the psychedelic ones, but for some reason I can't. I keep buying them, not even cooking them. I can't stop eating them, and I was like, all right, I don't know what that's about, but my body must be missing something. So
somebody just laughingly told me that you're in need of spores.
Well, it's funny. I would like to grow the other ones, but that's not happening right now. But good. All right. So I'm getting my spores. All right. Any other advice for and this is something else too. Tell me if you have a different view on this. I tell people, like, I have a deal. I have one major guide, and my deal with him is that he looks like the emperor. He looks like the emperor card, and he's comfortable with that, and I'm comfortable with that. And then when I go to see other psychics, sometimes there's like, oh, there's this guy here, and he's all dressed up like they described the emperor card in the tarot deck. Can I tell people sometimes we would probably be upset at what they look like, so it's okay to make that deal. Do you feel like that's true?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they might look crazy.
anything that makes you feel more comfortable in your connection with them, anything that makes you feel more emotionally connected to that and invested in that, absolutely. They may look like nothing, but yeah, they may look like some kind of weird, unimaginable creature. Who knows?
Yeah. And I had 2 that were, one was put on the left, one was put on the right, that seemed to be made of rocks. I don't know what that is, except I think it's a show of power that came out of nowhere. Just came out of nowhere. So I like honoring that. Is there a difference between guides and angels?
Yeah, that one's tricky, isn't it? That one's tricky. I think, okay, they're telling you, they have their own answer for you right now. Like archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Bridget, Artemis, people, perhaps they were people, or perhaps they are just angels that have been described in great detail. They can be called on at any time for any reason by anyone. But that's just a drop in the bucket compared to what is available to us. And there's a whole lot of really valuable guides willing to work with us that don't have a name. When I started channeling pretty regularly in the early 90s, I asked repeatedly, I need a name. Ramtha was out there at the time. People like a name. I need a name. And they said, to name me is to limit me.
Ah. Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And I have other friends that have gotten very similar information about that. And again, our imagination can only go so far.
That's interesting because that is, if you were calling on a particular archangel with a name, they all seem to have specific goals. Yeah. That's fascinating. Oh my goodness. All right. So now, Hawaii is quite, were you born there? Did you move there? That's quite a spiritual place.
I moved here about 20 years ago. My sister began vacationing here in the 80s with her friends. She talked my mother into retiring here, sight unseen, on Maui. And then I started coming to visit my mom, and I eventually just could not bear to be away. First time I came, the first few steps I made off the airplane, I thought, oh my God, I want to be here. So, yeah.
It almost feels, well, I think that a lot of places that are surrounded by water, I was just looking at someone I was also going to ask on the podcast, and she was in Belize. And I was like, it seems clearing, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I think that's a big component of it for me, because there's a lot of conflict, social conflict and political conflict in Hawaii. So it's not like it's pristine energy. Plus, the Hawaiian people are very strong, big energy, big personalities, beautiful, joyous people, but they grew up learning how to be warriors. So these are people that are not to be dismissed. And that energy permeates every piece of the land here for me in the way I feel it. So the very first time I came, my mother took me to a hayout and had me ask permission to be here. And I don't forget that ever. I talk about it frequently, that I asked permission to be here.
That is a great rule for anyone, anywhere, isn't it?
It can't hurt, right? Can't hurt.
That's fascinating. Asking permission to be there. That is beautiful. Honor the land. Ask permission. Was your mom a little bit psychic or medium too? Because it sounds like she's playing a big role in here.
Yeah, Mom was very, 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 very tuned in, but she was very erratic. She was ungrounded. She had her own. She was not an easy person to be with, but she was a pioneer. I tell people, my mom went from the country club to the teepee. She was a pioneer, and I learned a lot from her, and she always encouraged these abilities in myself and my sister. And my sister is also a psychic. She is a pet psychic, a pet animal communicator.
That's a great, my friend, my best friend is an animal communicator, and she's like, I just discovered I had mediumship skills. And I was like, oh, that's great. And I never thought until you said it earlier to put them together. That's exactly what she's doing when the pets pass.
Yeah. Well, and my sister is perfectly capable of working with people. She just prefers to work with animals. So.
Yeah. Sonia had that connection with animals since she was little. She was like, you guys don't hear that kind of thing. So she came in with that. So I bet I should get her your book, for also, Betsy, this has been fantastic. Fantastic.
Oh. Yes, thank you, Karen. I have so enjoyed meeting you.
And I really, I really wanted that. I really loved the way you dug in and gave me the how-to. And I think a lot of people are also at home taking notes. The book is on Amazon. It's an ebook. It's a workbook. That sounds even more fun. You are gifted.
Yes.
And they can find you at your new beautiful website, Medium Betsy Palmer.
Yes. .com.
Awesome. Anything else you want to tell the folks before we close down?
It's a beautiful life. Go for it.
I love that. Let's all learn to enjoy it. That's what I had to do today. You brought me the joy I needed and snapped me out of that. All right. Thank you, Betsy. Thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. Thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it. I forget to say sometimes, if you can leave me a review, even if you don't like me, it helps people find the podcast. And hopefully I'm going to see you on the road doing comedy. I finally got my comedy dates on my calendar at karenrontowski.com or paranormalkaren.com. Have a great week, everybody.